Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of This Week in the World of Football. This is episode number 324 for November 28th, 2023. I'm your host, Randy Snow. On this week's show, the Carolina Panthers fire head coach Frank Reich, Michigan State hires head coach Jonathan Smith from Oregon State, and a Japanese college football team breaks a three-way tie for a playoff spot by using rock, paper, scissors? But I'm not here all by myself. Across the table from me, as always, is my son Adam.
If any of you guys out there are like me and you hear that last story about the rock, paper, scissors bit, trust me, it's as crazy as it's probably going to sound.
I was told the story, and I was kind of like, "You got to be kidding me!" And then I was sent a video of it. So yes, that's how it
It's
happened.
absolutely
So
crazy.
we'll talk about that here.
God,
in a
isn't
little bit.
football great?
We come to you each week from the fabulous World of Football Man Cave, located right here in the center of the football world, Kalamazoo, Michigan. We're here to promote the game of football in all its many forms, past, present, and future. Our goal is to educate, inform, and entertain our listeners with the glorious buffet that is the world of football. All this while keeping a close eye on the rich history of the game. Thanks for checking out our podcast. We'd love to get your feedback on one of our many platforms: Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. So you can simply ask your Alexa device to play the World of Football podcast. We also have timestamps down in the descriptions of both the podcast and the YouTube video, so you can go right to the topics you really want to listen to. You can also find our podcast in its full audio form on our YouTube channel. Just search for The World of Football Kalamazoo or use the handle at The World of Football in the YouTube search bar. So you will
Oh, he lost his place already.
You'll also find other selected videos on our YouTube channel, like Just Lying Around, a Detroit Lions podcast featuring Adam and his brother-in-law Kyle. The most current one is the Week 12 game versus the Packers.
We'll talk about that right off the bat.
Depressing.
We'll get to that in the
video.
scores.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. We also have our World of Football NFL Power Rankings for Week 12. Those will be out later on tonight.
Week 13s will be out tonight. So we got Week 12s out there. Week 13 I'm going to put up tonight. I wonder if we should start talking about that during the show. That's just between you and me. But no, yeah, so that'll go out tonight. I got everybody's rankings right now. They just got to be tabulated and regurgitated into the World of Football Power Rankings.
Regurgitated. Yeah. And also our weekly picks video for week 13.
We record that tonight. That'll go up maybe tonight, maybe early tomorrow morning now.
Tuesdays are a busy day for us.
It's busy for me. Yeah, I have to tell my girlfriend, like, hey, just so you know, you're not going to see me at all Tuesday. I'm pretty busy. But no, with the picks, yeah, man, last week was absolutely crazy with it going into Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, I was like working on everything. I was getting behind between getting ready for Thanksgiving and all that jazz. People had to leave their picks in different videos because I didn't get the picks up in time.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely crazy. So thank you everybody for your patience. We should be back on schedule. With holidays and stuff kind of behind us for now. So apologies. And I made sure to send Randy because he didn't pay attention. Did you get? There was Royce. Royce sent in their picks on a different video. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
The only one I didn't have was Liz, and you said you got it a few days ago, and you never told me you got it.
Yeah, I got
it
through a
days
text
ago.
message.
So I got it late last night.
All good. All right, yeah, we're all good on this end then.
All right, so let's begin today's show with Adam and the World of Football scoreboard.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, oh boy, I hate that we have to start off with the Lions. It's very rare that we get to the first game of the week.
Yeah.
The Detroit Lions, but it's Thanksgiving week. We love the tradition. But gosh darn it, that darn gibbous moon and that darn fact that the Lions have lost 7 straight going into Thanksgiving has not helped. And make it 8 straight as the Green Bay Packers came in and just absolutely pretty much just beat the Lions from the jump 29-22.
Yeah.
Which we talked about on the podcast between me and Kyle and Just Lying Around that Packers scored 20 of their 29 points in the first quarter. Then the Lions defense kind of showed up. It just didn't feel like that watching the game.
Right.
It just felt like Green Bay just pretty much could do whatever they wanted, which has been the last 2 weeks for the Lions. They couldn't stop they couldn't stop a nosebleed.
Well, one of the things that you said, I think, on your Just Lying Around podcast is that we should have won this game, but we also should have lost last week's game against the Bears. So they kind of
it's a weird balance. This is the way. This is what I love about the NFL, especially, is that that's the weird balance. That's the weird parity that this league is kind of set up that, like I think the Lions, I think they're a better team still. Now they're making me question it a little bit. But the Packers, they just came out hungry. And when you start off a game like that, that's hard to kind of overcome. And Detroit showed for 3 quarters they were kind of the better football team. And then had they not turned over the ball to start the game, it probably would have been a different outcome. But same with the Bears. Like if the Bears wouldn't have messed up at the end of that game, Detroit had no business winning that game. So it's a weird balancing act that you never really know who's going to come in, week in and week out and
you look at the 49ers. They had a few bad games in a row.
Bad 3-game stretch.
But now they're right back on top, and they're one of the top teams.
And everybody's like, "Oh, now they're the best team again." Like,
and Baltimore
can stumble. The Lions had that bad loss in Baltimore, then they kind of got their heads back on straight.
But
now they're in a tough stretch again.
Baltimore had some bad games too. They started out kind of rough, and now they've got things around.
The Eagles' one loss was to the Jets of all teams. Like the NFL is a crazy place.
Yeah.
But back to the Thanksgiving game real quick. How did the Lions organization let Jack Harlow come out with one of the worst setups for a Thanksgiving halftime show of all time?
That was embarrassing.
Especially when you watch the second game and you're like, oh, Jerry Jones threw all the money at Dolly Parton in this halftime show, which we'll talk about. But so it's just, even I think Pat McAfee said it best when he's just like, if that halftime show was any indication, Jack Harlow lost, Lions lost. It was all kind of doomed from the beginning.
Well, for years we've been advocating for Weird Al Yankovic to do a Super Bowl halftime. Maybe he just needs to do a Thanksgiving halftime in one of these cities.
I'd be so thankful for a Weird Al halftime show of any kind. It doesn't matter. Give it to him.
Got 3 games on Thanksgiving. He can. He lives out in L.A. Maybe he can do like a Saturday or a Thursday night game if it's in L.A. or something like that. And just get his moment in the sun.
Maybe we should start petitioning. You know what? Let's pivot from the Super Bowl because that might be the biggest pipe dream ever. I mean, as much as I would love a Weird Al Super Bowl,
right?
Maybe just maybe the realistic thing we need to start pushing for the World of Football halftime show at Thanksgiving
featuring Weird
Al Yankovic in Detroit. The Lions have been so bad on Thanksgiving anyway, we could use a laugh. We could use some fun on Thanksgiving, and why not? If Dallas could put up a 100-year-old Dolly Parton...
She's only 77.
In a cheerleader uniform on their stage, we could darn sure put up a Weird Al in his Hawaiian shirt and an accordion in the middle of Ford Field and rock that place. Are you kidding me?
I think Ford Field has the perfect acoustics for an accordion solo.
Probably.
Myself.
I'm all for... Hashtag Weird Al for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
With the number 4.
Well, I'm telling you, after the Lions game, I was so upset. I hardly watched any football the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
I didn't watch hardly any of the other 2 games on Thanksgiving. I watched hardly any games on Sunday. I did watch the Monday night game, but I was all off of football this weekend.
I don't know if this goes for anybody else. I'd be curious to hear from people. Like when your team loses, how does that affect the rest of your football watching? I mean, like the Lions have lost 3 games this year, and each time I do find, I mean, even when the Lions were terrible, it is hard to watch other football when your team loses. Outside of I can watch some college football. Like I watched plenty of college football over the weekend after the Lions lost, but it is weird. Like it's I don't really want to watch it because they're gonna at some point maybe bring up your team and how bad you did, that how great the Packers are. So I avoided normally I'll watch Good Morning Football or watch
all
the
highlight
Herd
shows,
or all those shows, and I'm just no, don't need to see.
When we lose, I don't watch any of those shows either. But But I mean, for me, I don't watch a lot of NFL other than the Lions because that's my one team. I have one favorite team and 31 teams I can't stand. So I usually, if I'm watching another NFL game that doesn't involve Detroit, it's because I'm watching to root against somebody. I want to see the Cowboys lose, or I want to see the Packers lose. That's the only reason I'm watching that game. Not to watch somebody win, but to watch somebody that I hate more than the other team lose.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But all right, we kind of stuck on the Lions. Yep. I mean, a little bit, so we'll keep moving on.
Yep.
The second Thanksgiving game, the Dallas Cowboys has absolutely decimated the Washington Commanders, 45-10. I caught a little bit of this. I came over to my uncle's house. They had the game on the TV. You were already there. Dallas just shellacked Washington. Washington just seemed so incompetent. So that was a nothing burger. Then the halftime show with Dolly Parton immediately made me go, geez, Detroit, we can't even spend money on a halftime show. We got Dolly Parton out here in a cheerleader uniform performing. I mean, she looked and sounded great.
I bet you that outfit cost more than the set in Detroit.
It probably did. Jack Harlow just bought that off of Amazon or something. But So that was interesting. And then, oh yeah, I forgot about this. A little story, but we'll talk about this after the Thanksgiving game. So then the third game, I didn't really catch much of, but the 49ers handled the Seattle Seahawks 31-13. I didn't even watch any of that. I don't know if you stayed up to watch any of that.
Nope.
Then we had a Black Friday game, the first ever Black Friday game,
Yep.
which I didn't watch any
No,
of.
I didn't watch it because it was on Amazon Prime, but I did. But as soon as the game was over, they started showing it on NFL Network. And I caught it the next morning because they reshowed it a couple times overnight. So I caught the tail end of it.
Yeah. But the Miami Dolphins beat the New York Jets 34-13. See, the only things I saw from this were all like little news blips, like how Tua Tagovailoa had a big gash taken out of his arm during the game. Another player for the Dolphins like had a really bad ACL, like he was like in a 3-point stance. He like kind of jumped off, out of position, to start running, and then you could just see his leg just do that same snap motion that we've seen happen to a few players this year that have gotten the ACL injuries.
Yeah, not ACL, but the what is it? The thing that Rodgers had got, the Achilles tendon.
Oh, maybe that's what
There's
it was.
been a ton of those this year.
And it's same stadium. There's something with that turf.
Is it really?
I think there's got to be something with the turf, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be.
But I've never seen this many Achilles tendons injuries in one season before.
You think Aaron Rodgers and then that one in the same stadium, that's MetLife. Right. So I don't know if it's that stadium specifically, if it's just turf in general. I do think they need to. The league's got enough money to start putting some real grass turf down. You can make it work.
You would think MetLife has real grass. I don't know.
They don't. I think it's all artificial. But okay, then your Sunday slate of games. Now, before we get to the Sunday slate of games, I do want to bring this up because I don't think you have this in the news, but you don't watch Red Zone.
No.
But you know the premise of NFL Red Zone, which is Scott Hansen, who I think the few times I've watched Red Zone, I think he does absolute great jobs. Sitting there 7 hours and doesn't take a stick of bathroom break.
That's for fantasy football geeks.
I think it's for if you don't have a team and you just want to watch all the best parts of the games, which I'd be down for. Are you kidding me? I could sit there and it's intoxicating, maybe even a little too much. But apparently during the broadcast on Sunday, and like I said, I don't think you had this in the news.
No.
But did you hear about that? Where a fire alarm went off during the show. It had never happened before. And you can hear a fire alarm going off. And the building was being evacuated. But Scott Hansen stayed on set and went through it. Apparently, I don't know if anything actually was bad. And they eventually let people back in the building. But he just sat there and took it during this slate of games on Sunday. I just thought that was absolutely crazy.
I heard something about a fire alarm, but I thought it was at a game. I didn't know it was on the Red Zone.
Yeah, it was on the Red Zone channel. Yeah, he's just in the studio with a fire alarm going off.
Wow.
In the however many years they've been doing that, and that's never happened.
It's been several.
Well, okay, so here's your slate of games. On Sunday, the Atlanta Falcons defeated the New Orleans Saints 24-15. The Cincinnati Bengals fell to the Pittsburgh Steelers 16-10. And a funny thing from this game, I believe, is the first game since the Pittsburgh Steelers hired that Matt Canada that got fired last week, the offensive coordinator. It's the first game they've had over 400 yards of total offense. First game. One game after they fired the dude. And I don't know if it was, they said it's been 50 games or something, maybe 20 games, however long he's been the offensive coordinator. They had never had a 400-yard offensive game under him. Maybe his first couple of games, but since it was nothing. So that's just absolutely crazy to me.
One of the scores was the scoregami. I know they mentioned that. I think it was maybe the Sunday night game. I'll know it when I see it. But
okay, there's a few scores that I'm like, those could be scoregamis.
Yeah.
Moving on, the Jacksonville Jaguars got a win over the Texans 24-21. Did you see the Texans uniforms? They were wearing all red. They had the red helmet with the full red uniforms. What'd you think of that?
Different.
I actually didn't mind when it was the red helmet and everything. I was like, that actually is not a terrible look. I don't mind that. The Indianapolis Colts got a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-20. The New England Patriots lost again, this time to the New York Giants 10-7.
Oh, those mighty Giants.
Gee, what was it? The score last week was 10-6. They lost. So they're the first team ever to lose 2 games in a row by holding their opponents to 10 points or less. Absolutely crazy for the New England Patriots. So their defense plays. It's just they can't get their offense going. Right. The Tennessee Titans defeated the Carolina Panthers 17-10, and we'll obviously talk a little bit more about the Carolina Panthers in a little bit in the news because obviously they ended up firing their head coach, as we talked about at the top of the show. The the Los Angeles Rams. Wow, it's been a while since I've done that. The Rams beat the Cardinals 37-14. The Cleveland Browns, how about this, fell to the Denver Broncos, the red hot Denver Broncos, 29-12. Are the Broncos a threat now. I think they might be. The Kansas City Chiefs came back to beat the Raiders 31-14. I think they were down 14-0 at one point, and they came back to beat the Raiders. Then I don't think this was the Sunday night game, but this was a late game on Sunday. But the Eagles beat the Bills in overtime, 37-34. What a thrilling end to this game. A bunch of other stuff was happening where Bills players were getting into it with Philly fans there and on the sideline behind the bench. That's been a whole thing. I'm sure there'll be some fines going out for that. Apparently, a fan has been making life or threats on family and lives.
Really?
That's what the player was accusing him of. Like, this guy was just back there. We told security, they never threw him out, and emotions got the best of us. We went over there, and the one guy put a hand on the fan, which he shouldn't do. Even though he was probably being a jerk and saying a lot of stuff he probably shouldn't be saying, but probably should have been thrown out by security before that.
And that's why alcohol should not be sold in the stadium or be allowed in the parking lot before any NFL game.
Hold on. I mean, don't rob us of a good time.
It's just my opinion.
Some of us well-behaved fans that can have a beer or two. So that was so the Eagles go to 10-1. They're clearly the best team in the league right now.
I really thought they were going to lose that game.
They win ugly. They find a way.
It was back and forth quite a bit.
I'm surprised the Bills put up that kind of fight. The Bills have been so wishy-washy. We never know what version of them showing up.
But to me, I watched the last part of that game, the last half, and to me, it was going to be whoever had the ball last was going to win. And I thought that was going to be the Bills.
NFL games usually, the team with the ball at the end wins.
Yep.
The Ravens beat the Chargers 20-10. On Sunday Night Football, and then the Chicago Bears won in a shootout against the Vikings on Monday Night Football, 12-10. Was that the scoregami?
I can't remember. It might have been that Broncos game. I don't know.
Okay, I could probably
29-12.
But I mean, that's Monday night game. I watched a little bit of that dumpster fire of a game. Poor Joshua Dobbs, threw 4 interceptions during the game.
Oh yeah, he looked like what we thought he was going to look like from game one. It's taken him 3-4 games to look bad. So that was his first really bad game. But we didn't expect much from him in the beginning, and he finally showed that last night that he is beatable.
So your scoregami that you're referring to was the Denver Broncos 29, Cleveland 12. That is the 1,081st unique final score.
Yes.
In NFL history. I love that you even brought that up.
Well, they mentioned it on the telecast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I like it when
that's
they
how I knew
it.
Because they mentioned it on the telecast. That's a scoregami.
Yeah. So there was only 13 games. No, there'll be 13 games this upcoming week. We got 6 teams on bye going into next week. So that's it for the NFL scores.
Yeah, all 16 teams played, or 16 games.
Yep. So then we're going to throw it over to Randy, who we got some college games to talk about.
Yeah. Well, after the disappointment of the Lions, we had the Michigan and Ohio State game to talk about. But let's go down the list here. Number 1, Georgia. This is week 13, and there are now 5 undefeated teams left.
And they're doing another playoff ranking tonight, right before all the college championships. Yes. So okay, we'll have to maybe make a prediction. Who do you think? Should we just do it up top now? Who do you think will be the 4 right now? Because I think right now this list doesn't matter. It's the one next Sunday that's going to matter clearly. Yeah. But going into next weekend, with Ohio State getting knocked out, does Michigan become the number 1 team? I think there's an argument for Michigan jumping Georgia.
Yes, because they did play the number 2 team in the country and beat them.
And they beat them.
Yes.
And without their head coach.
Right.
They've won 6 games this season without their head coach.
It wouldn't surprise me if Michigan winds up number 1.
Colin Cowherd, I think, and I know he's polarizing, and some people like him, some people hate him, but he made a good point to me, which was Michigan won 6 games without Harbaugh coaching the game.
Right.
And I just think he was saying, you take the Kirby Smart, I think that's Georgia's coach, you take him away, that probably ain't happening. You take Nick Saban away, that's probably not happening. You take any of these coaches, that's probably not happening. Maybe not. We'll probably never know. But it's just fascinating to me that was a thing. I forgot about the 3-game suspension to start the year, but that makes 6 total games that Harbaugh was not on the sideline for. Yeah. And Michigan's 12-0. Half of the season. And some of those tough games,
wait, the 3 at the beginning, those were cakewalks.
Cakewalks. But then you have
the last 3
number 10 at the time, number 10 Penn State, who are now they were number 12 going into last weekend. And then number 2, the number 2 team in the country, who was at one point the number 1 team in the country, hadn't lost a game. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and your arch rival too.
Yeah, and your arch rival in the game. And what heck of a game that ended up being. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Yeah, but going down the list here, starting with the number 1 Georgia, improving to 12-0 with a win over Georgia Tech, 31-23. Number 3 Michigan improves to 12-0 with an upset of number 2 Ohio State, 30-24. That was the first loss for Ohio State, obviously.
And then we watched that game together.
Yeah. Well, I watched the first half. I was falling
Oh, that's right.
asleep.
You only stayed for the first half.
I was tired for some reason.
Yeah, probably all that Thanksgiving turkey.
Well, no, because that was Saturday, so I came over with a couple
You
of
had leftovers.
good burger
I know
meals.
you always eating leftovers.
I brought you a good burger, good fries, and a good shake from Arby's.
Not sponsored by. Well, that meal was sponsored by Good Burger too, but I haven't
Right.
watched it yet.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a good game. That second half, I mean, was very close. I mean, Ohio State had a chance at the end to kind of win it, but threw a crucial pick there at the end. So I don't know.
There were so many plays in this game that had to be reviewed because it was, did he catch it? Did he trap it? Did he fumble it?
And the fact that people are still talking about those plays, like that one Roman Wilson touchdown where he crossed the plane, but maybe he was bobbling it. Yeah. Maybe it got stripped in time. Maybe it did. It was so close. Like you go online now and it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if you're a Michigan fan or not. Like I'm sure there's some Michigan fans who are probably like, I hate to admit it, but it might have been out. So we watched it again today. I definitely got in a discussion with an Ohio State fan at work who we work with, and he's like, "See, look, it's coming out." I'm like, "I think for a split second, it is controlled as it crosses the plane, which means it's a touchdown." But then the follow through, yeah, he bobbles it and it gets stripped. But the way they handled this game, the officiating wise, was whatever they called on the field initially, they kind of just stuck with, which I kind of admire. Like, all right, at least you're sticking to your guns. And it was a 50-50. Like, if you review it, it was just that close. And if it's that close, stick with what you called. Don't be controversial and change it.
Even a slow motion, replay, you still couldn't tell without a doubt in your mind. Could it be? Yes, it could be. Maybe not.
Did he break the plane? Did he not?
Yeah.
Like there was a bunch of that game especially.
So many controversial calls. That was mainly the only college game I watched this weekend. Was there was
that, and then we can talk about a couple more as you go along.
Yeah. Let's see. Number 4, Florida State improved to 12-0 with a win over Florida.
I watched a little bit of that game. I mean, Florida was up in that game too. But Florida State, I think they're on their third quarterback. I think even their backup got hurt. If I'm correct, I jumped in towards the end of the game. Clearly, their star quarterback has been hurt. They were either on their second or third quarterback. I could be wrong. Don't correct me. So regardless, a backup quarterback in there at Florida State. And they found a way to win at the end of that game. So that was a pretty fun watch when I tuned into that one.
Okay, let's see. Number 5, Washington improved to 12-0 with a win over Washington State, 24-21. That's a pretty close game. That was the Apple Cup trophy game. Number 8, Alabama over Auburn, 27-24, in another close game. And I heard Auburn was up in that game too for a while.
Did you watch the end of it? Oh, okay, so you got to go back and watch the highlights if you haven't seen this one. So I'm watching this one. Alabama had a 4th and goal at the 31-yard line. 4th and goal at the 31. I think, it was like at the 31-yard line. And I'm not sure the quarterback's name for Alabama, but he throws this pass, lobs it to the corner of the end zone, and it gets caught.
Wow.
For the lead score with maybe about 20-something seconds left. And after that, I saw the highlight. You just see nothing but Auburn fan reaction videos on either YouTube or on Twitter or wherever. And just the look on their face as that happened, you're just like, I don't know what I do.
Again.
It was like borderline like when the Lions got the last second field goal, Baltimore kicked that 65-yard or whatever it was 66. To beat them. Yeah. And
I'm sitting there. You ought to remember.
I was in the end zone and doinked in. Just that air sucking type of thing. It's unbelievable. But for Alabama to come back and win that game like that, boy, oh boy, like heck of a finish there. A bunch of these rivalry games lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
That's what I love about college.
That was the Iron Bowl game that they play every year. Let's see. Moving on here. Kentucky upset number 10, Louisville, 38-31. Number 12, Penn State shut out Michigan State 42-0. That was like a Friday night at Ford Field in Detroit. Now, I did watch some of that game. And
I didn't see any of that.
I think I had it on, and I wasn't really paying attention to it, and I kept looking it up, and Michigan State hasn't scored yet. Michigan State hasn't scored yet. I said, yeah, this is going badly for Michigan State.
But real quick on that one, I didn't watch that game, but the Michigan high school playoffs are happening at the same time, so it was weird seeing. I saw a great highlight. If you find it out there, it's one of the best interceptions you'll ever see.
I posted it.
Did you post that? Yes, because you have the Michigan State emblem in the middle of the field. but it's clearly in Ford Field. So it was like the next day. They got the blue end zones. You see lions along the walls there. But this kid catches this interception behind his back.
Yeah.
Pulls it around. I don't know if they called him down there. He kind of kept running after that play, but I feel like his knee
hit the ground.
So they probably called him down at that spot.
But he kept running.
But the fact that he still intercepted the ball behind his back was
he had to jump up in the air to tip the ball up, and then he caught it behind his back. He didn't even see it.
One of the best interceptions.
Put his hands behind his back and caught the ball, and I think he went down on a knee, but he got up and kept on running, and that was incredible. Yeah, I saw that on the local news.
Yeah, I know that's not a college game, but the fact that it happened at Ford Field.
Yeah,
it was.
Well, see, normally the Michigan high school playoffs are Friday and Saturday at Ford Field, but because they threw in this Penn State Michigan State game on Friday night, they moved the high school playoffs, to Saturday and Sunday this week, and I think it's going back to normal next year. So they'll have them all done by Sunday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did see that on the local news, and I found it, on Twitter or Facebook, and I reposted that. So yeah, that was an incredible catch. So I think I put it on both those sites. Let's see. Continuing with the scoreboard, number 19 Notre Dame over Stanford, 56-23. North Carolina State upset number 20 North Carolina, 39-20. Iowa State upset number 21 Kansas State, 42-35. Liberty also improved to 12-0 on the season with a win over UTEP, 42-28. James Madison finished their regular season with an 11-1 record with a win over Coastal Carolina, 56-14. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but James Madison is going to be allowed to be in a bowl game after all. But it's not for the reason you think. I was going to talk about this in the news section, but since we're here, let's talk about this now. The reason they're allowing them to play, because I think they had a ruling last week, said, nope, our rule is you can't play in a bowl game in your first year. Well, as it turns out, they don't have enough 6-6 teams to fill out the bowl schedule. So they're taking some 5-win teams. Well, instead of that, they're going to let James Madison play because they're 11-1. Gee, what a backhanded compliment!
Right,
yeah,
kidding.
Only because we don't have enough other good teams, we're going to let you play.
This is why the NCAA stinks.
I know that was a terrible rule. They should
college football is great. The NCAA stinks.
You can that rule needs to be changed, but they could have made an exception this year because of such a great team, with a great record. That was what I'm saying. So yeah, so they will get to be in a bowl game. We don't know which one yet, but they will be in a bowl game. So good for them. Congratulations. All right, a few more scores here. Utah State over New Mexico, 44-41 in double overtime. And unfortunately, it was Bowling Green over Western Michigan, 34-10. That was a Tuesday night Maction game. Western had a chance to get 6 wins, but they lost their last 2 games by bad scores. I mean, Northern Illinois and now Bowling Green. They just could not put it together.
Now Western Michigan's got to turn their sights on next season because you know who they got week 2? They go to Ohio State.
Oh, really?
Week 2 next season. Yeah.
I was looking at some of their upcoming games. They're playing some big name teams on the road in the next couple of years.
So get your bootstraps ready, Western. You got to go down to Columbus and smack the tar out of Ohio State. That's what I want.
Oh, man. Oh, that should be something else. Moving on to the military academies. Army did not play this week, but SMU defeated Navy 59-14. Boise State over Air Force 27-19. That's the 4th straight loss for Air Force.
Jeez.
After starting 8-0.
8-0, they were ranked for a minute and then just all downhill from there.
Yep. And coming up this weekend are all the conference championship games. So that's going to be a big, I think it starts Friday night and most of, a couple on Friday night, the rest on Saturday.
Gotta love, these are the games.
Yeah.
These are great. But man, you got to think about it. This is the last year for like traditional conference championship.
Right.
Like next year, the Big Ten's going to be so different. It's going to be so...
Well, they're still going to have a championship game, but it's just going to be... They're not going to have like an East and West.
Which is what I've been saying for years.
The top 2 teams.
It needs to just be the top 2. But you know what that means, though? Even though Michigan and Ohio State, we were looking at their schedules, and boy, they got some games. None of those teams are going to go... I think you're going to get... There's no way that these teams are going to be undefeated going into a championship game. But the fact that you could potentially go, Michigan and Ohio State are the number 1 and 2 teams again? They just played last week. Now they're going to play for the Big Ten championship. Oh, then the playoffs are happening? Well, gee, guess who they're playing in the playoffs? Like, they could potentially play 3 times a season the way this is all kind of structured.
Yeah.
And
Best 2 out of 3.
best 2 out of 3. Do you think that takes away from the prestige of the game?
I do. I think so.
Or does it just heighten the rivalry because now it's like, oh, now we're playing for the championship?
Well, in college football, you basically get one chance to win a game over somebody, and it just doesn't make any sense that they keep getting second chances at the same team. Um, it has happened a few times, where you beat somebody in the regular season, then you either meet them in a bowl game or playoffs or whatever. That's kind of rare, but I don't like the idea of the same two teams. If people are sick of them, the first time they play, people
Well,
who aren't really fans
it
of
might
those
be
two
different if
teams.
Michigan and Ohio State weren't the last game of the season, but that's tradition. But then,
Right.
but now with the championship game, which I'm all for, but like if they were that that good, it's only going to be negative if it's a blowout. If Michigan loses to Ohio State 45-0 or vice versa, then it makes the prospect of a championship game like, well, they just blew them out 45-0. Why do we want to see that 2 weeks in a row? Maybe Michigan bounces back. Maybe the other team that lost bounces back, but it's going to be weird that next year's going to be uncharted water
Yeah.
for
With a
college
12-team
football.
playoff
With a
and
12-team playoff, with all this conference realignment, like
yep.
it's going to be absolutely bonkers. Like when we were looking at Michigan's schedule, they got Texas week 2. They got to go to, or I think USC they play Washington. They still got to play Ohio State. They got to play probably Penn State. I think I got to relook at the schedule. They got games. Potentially Michigan could be a 3-loss team going into the Ohio State game, and vice versa. Ohio State's got to, play a USC or I forget what the other big schools they play. Western Michigan. Western will probably handle them. You weren't even listening, were you?
No,
I said Western Michigan, and you didn't do nothing.
I was looking at something else. I was trying to keep my place on the script here.
Yeah. All right. Well, we could get off of that subject because we're 30 minutes in. We still haven't gotten through the scores. I thought we'd be past this.
All right, let's breeze through some of these other ones here.
Yeah,
FCS scores. FCS. This was the first round of playoffs at that level. You had North Dakota State over Drake, 66-3. Delaware over Lafayette, 36-34. And in the 50th Bayou Classic, it was Southern University over Grambling at 27-22. Or let's jump to Division II, second round playoffs over there. Grand Valley State over Pittsburgh State, the Gorillas, 24-21, and it was Slippery Rock over Tiffin, 45-35. At Division III in their second round playoffs, it was Alma College from right here in Michigan, where I used to go to band camp, over Mount Union, 24-20. Mount Union has been a Division III powerhouse for many years. So for them to come out and beat Mount Union, that is an awesome accomplishment. Congratulations to the Alma Scots for that. And then also in Division III, North Central of Illinois over Trinity of Texas, 71-28. In the NAIA playoffs, it was the second round there. Grandview over Dickinson State of North Dakota, 28-3, and Northwestern over Dordt of Iowa by the whopping score of 7-0. Okay, junior college football. There was no junior college football going on this week, but their playoffs and bowl games begin next weekend, so we'll have some scores from the junior college ranks. And then finally, U Sports in Canada. The 58th Vanier Cup championship game was played in Kingston, Ontario, and it was the Montreal Carabins over the University of British Columbia Thunderbirds, 16-9. So not only does Montreal have the Grey Cup champion this week, they also have the college football champion in Montreal. Congratulations to everyone in the province of Quebec and in the city of Montreal. You guys are champions this year.
Yes.
Twice over.
Good for them.
Yep. And that is it for this week's World of Football scoreboard.
Oh, boy. Like I said, way longer than I anticipated.
Yeah, really. We looked at the script and go, oh, yeah, this is nothing. We can breeze through this. And then we always wind up talking too much. Yep. All right, let's go to some NFL news. Carolina Panthers fire head coach Frank Reich after just 11 games with a record of 1-10. They were saying that this was like the one of the shortest tenures in NFL history, or at least in the last 40 years. 11 games into his tenure there. Special teams coach Chris Tabor will serve as interim head coach. They also fired running backs coach Deuce Staley, who we loved here in Detroit, and we're so upset to see him leave, but he wanted to be closer to his family in North Carolina, so he went there, and now he's out of a job. As well as quarterbacks coach Josh McCown. So yeah, 3 coaches got fired from that organization. The team traded their 2024 first-round pick to the Bears last year during the draft so that they could acquire quarterback Bryce Young from Alabama. evidently they figured that the coaching staff wasn't getting the most out of him. So at least that's my opinion. Um, so yeah, heads rolled, and I'm assuming they want to stick with Bryce Young, but they got to bring in some people to work with him that
Yes, and then a story came out today. That David Tepper confirmed that they were supposed to trade the number two and take C.J. Stroud because they believed Houston wouldn't take Bryce Young at number 1. So, yeah, so they wanted. He admitted to saying they wanted to take C.J. Stroud. So, boy, what does that do for Bryce Young? What an absolute mess. I mean,
yeah.
But he says they're confident in the pick they ended up making with Trey Young, right? Bryce Young, not Trey Young, Bryce Young. We'll see what happened, but man, what a mess! I mean, we remember when Carolina had that. I think it was All or Nothing on Amazon. It was like a documentary series. I think we ended up watching it at one point together.
Well, I remember the title. I just
I think they did All or Nothing Carolina Panthers one year because that was like when David Tepper was kind of becoming the owner, and it was like his first year, and he's the owner's always got all the right things to say. But clearly, I mean, what has happened since? I mean, they've had a few mediocre seasons. Maybe they were like fringe playoff teams. Maybe they just missed it. And then the last couple of years, they've just been an absolute dumpster fire. They had the number 1 pick last year after trading with the Bears. It's just, and then this year they should have the number 1 pick, but they traded that to the Bears this year. So good luck rebuilding your team. You fire a coach. To me, firing Frank Reich is a big mistake. I think about like if the Lions would have fired Dan Campbell in that first season that we went 3-13-1.
Yeah.
If they would have like all the building, and look where we're at now. Like we let him and the GM build. We let them do their thing. We took our lumps, and he even said, "You're gonna take your lumps." We took our lumps that first year. We made a surprising jump the second year. We've made I won't say a surprising jump in year 3, but we're in a spot that maybe 3 years ago we weren't sure if we'd be at.
We've continued to improve.
And yeah, so to have the faith in a coach and just kind of let them run their plan. And you would think if you hired this guy, and Frank Reich doesn't seem like a bad, dumb coach. I mean, I think he's been a scapegoat, if anything.
I believe you're right, yeah.
And so to not follow whatever, he had to have had a plan. When you hire him, he's like, here's our plan. We're going to take a young quarterback. We're going to build around him. So from the get-go, you're probably going to have to develop a guy. You're going to have to take time and put the pieces around him. But you kind of hurt yourself a little bit by making that big trade to get him, first of all. So you kind of hindered, getting a good prospect this year, because now the Bears are going to have your first-round pick.
Right. Yeah, then they not only have a first round this year, and they got the first round last year, but they also are giving up a second round this coming year and a second round in 2025.
Yeah, so you kind of, man, and then what coach wants to come into this dumpster fire? Like I saw the names on the list. I think the few that I saw, and I don't know if it's just because we're in Michigan and we're Detroit fans, but the Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is supposedly the number 1 candidate for the Panthers, and I'm thinking, I'm sure Ben Johnson wants to be a head coach somewhere, but why would you want to go there?
Yeah,
he just fired a coach for going 1 and whatever. Yeah. And you telling me that you just expect him to come in and turn this all around in maybe 1 year?
With no high draft picks.
With no high draft, which is where you really need to build your team. I'm not sure what their cap situation is, but it's an absolute mess, and I just don't see it being that attractive of a job right now. Maybe in a few years when they get their draft picks back, but man, I feel bad for that young core. Like you got this coach that you just brought in, and I'd love to see a stat or some numbers about how many teams have fired their coach after drafting a first-year quarterback, like the year the first-year quarterback is there, and what was the trajectory of that player from there? Mainly just first round. I know there's quarterbacks in different positions picked all over the time, but just we focus on the quarterback position. It's the most vital position on the field. Where, what was that player's trajectory? I'm trying to think at the top of my head, like a Baker Mayfield had so many coaches when he started off there, and look where he's at now. He's not even in that same city. Yeah. You got like, I'm trying to think. Jeff Fisher was the coach in Los Angeles when Jared Goff got drafted. Luckily, Jared Goff got a Sean McVay who kind of came in, so that might be the exception to what I'm thinking. But now Jared Goff's in Detroit. It's just the changing of a coach in a player's early career could make or break him. I think for Jared Goff, getting McVay, clearly that helped him for a number of years before that relationship went sour. So what does it do for Bryce Young? And I'd hate to see the young kid, end up like a Johnny Manziel or like
Right, yeah.
not that he's got the character. I don't think he's got the character
No.
issues that some of these other
Just
guys have had.
a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, so you'd hate to see that for a kid, who I think is talented. Like we saw him
Right.
play against Detroit this year, and I thought if he had a better team around him, oh boy, he'd be a scary, that'd be a scary team.
It's all about getting into the right system with the right coach that knows how to get the most out of you, not say, okay, this is what you've got to do to get into my system, or this is what this is how we play out my type of game that I coach, and you have to do this. No, you gotta let the kid do what he does best,
And
and
now
coach to
also
that.
think about this: you take that Carolina job. What if you don't like Bryce Young?
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like, what if Ben Johnson's like he's a fine athlete? He's
I
not
want
the,
my own quarterback.
yeah. You want your own guy. It's a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, boy, you got to feel bad. I mean, again, it could all be turned around. I'm sure you get the right set of circumstances. We've seen it in the NFL. You go from worst to first, no problem. If you get the right set of circumstances and the right dominoes fall, like shoot, maybe your division gets bad and you just barely squeak in the playoffs and you can make some. So much happens. That's why the NFL, we talked about earlier, the parity in this league is just absolutely insane. But also, the ineptitude will set your franchise back, and we've seen that as Lions fans. That the ineptitude dominoes are a real thing.
Yeah.
Like I just saw a thing today, the 3-year anniversary today of Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn being fired from Detroit. And think about where we were then and where we are now. And those are the dominoes of believing and trusting in the process, because that was when they hired Chris Spielman. That's when they started the search for a GM and a coach. And I think right now we're on to something, because it was rare for a Lions coach to make it beyond 3 years.
Right.
If you made it beyond 3 years, that was like unheard of.
Well, Matt Patricia is where now?
I think he's a defensive analyst advisor for the Eagles.
The Eagles, okay.
Yeah.
And Bob Quinn, and I have
think
no
he went
idea
back,
where he's at.
he might have gone back to New England. I'm not sure. But yeah, haven't heard from him.
Well,
since
that's where
then.
Patricia came from, was New England.
Yeah.
And he was
Because
there
Patricia
until,
went back. Yeah, Patricia originally went back to New England for a little bit, and then
and I didn't realize he moved over to Philadelphia. I thought he was still with New England.
no.
Okay. All right. Well, we've run that one to death. Let's talk about some college news here. Michigan State hires Oregon State's head coach, Jonathan Smith. He had a record of 34-35 in his last 6 years at the school, and he signs a 6-year, $30.6 million contract. They were just having the press conference to introduce him today, and they were talking about it on the 12 o'clock news here in Michigan. So yeah, that was going on today. I haven't seen any highlights from it, but and they talked about how Oregon State and Washington, is it Washington or Washington State? Washington State, I think. They're the only two teams left in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So he's leaving the conference that is dying.
That's what
so that kind of makes sense.
When I saw they hired him, it was two things I thought of. One was that conference is dying,
right?
And two, he's familiar enough with some of those new schools they're bringing into the Big Ten. He's played the Oregons, he's played the Washington, the USCs, and the UCLA. So maybe that could be a interesting advantage to Michigan State. And I also, for Michigan State, remember when they hired Mel Tucker. That was a last second, just like all of a sudden D'Antonio retired in February, and all these coaching decisions happened in November. So it was like such a late hire for Michigan State that threw their program out of whack, then that threw Colorado out of whack. And now look where Colorado's at. They got, Coach Prime over there. So I think that's where he came from. Did he come from Colorado or Colorado State? He was Colorado State. Yeah. But regardless, you got to get your coach early. So it was clear that Michigan State didn't want to get behind the 8 ball this year. Whether or not this guy was the best candidate for the job, hard to say. I know people were fan projecting Urban Meyer's going to come to Michigan State. Yeah, good luck with that one. But I don't know. At least to me, it shows they were looking for a guy. They did it ahead of time so he can at least start ahead of schedule and start doing his recruiting, doing all what he needs to do to get this program back on track. Because, I mean, in Michigan, nothing's like having Michigan. I mean, we got the Ohio State game against Michigan, but there's nothing like Michigan State when they are both pretty good. When they're both pretty good, it makes that game so much more fun. Yeah. It makes the crap talking extra fun, because like we don't have a dog in the race. We root for the Michigan teams no matter what. We mainly will root for Western, but that week it's just fun to hear the back and forth between the Michigan and the Michigan State. And when one team's bad, it's not as fun. You still get the crap talking, but it's not as fun.
Yeah, somebody
Big
asked
brother,
me.
little brother talk.
Somebody
Like,
from out of state asked me one time, who does the state favor, Michigan or Michigan State? And I said it's like split right down the
it
middle.
is.
Half the state is diehard Michigan, the other half is diehard Michigan State.
Yep. And then you got a few of us Broncos, a
Right,
few Chippewas, and
right. Of course,
yeah,
but as far as the two big ones,
yeah,
the state is pretty much split on those two schools right there.
yep.
All right. Indiana has also fired their head coach, Tom Allen, after 7 years at the school. His overall record was 33-49, and in Big Ten play, he was only 18 wins and 43 losses against other Big Ten schools. The school's going to pay him $15.5 million to buy out his contract. Um, and we know somebody that roams the sidelines at Indiana, so
Oh, you had to get some
your
dirt. You're trying to get
your
some
cousin
insider.
Nathan, yeah,
Yeah.
he tried to be a walk-on kicker, but now he works with the kickers on the sideline. A lot of times you'll see him on TV.
I
But
saw him on the sideline, helping the quarterback warm up one time,
mm,
just catching passes. I was like,
yep,
heck yeah, Nathan.
yep.
Get it.
He's always at the Indiana game, so I wonder how that'll affect him. Hopefully, he won't lose his job under the new head
Oh,
coach or the
geez.
new
Regime.
regime.
Words are hard.
And then this just came out a little while ago. Mike Elko, the head coach at Duke University the last 2 years, and a former Texas A&M defensive coordinator, has been named head coach at Texas A&M University. No info on his contract, but I mean that makes sense. That's the position that they said they were looking at Dan Campbell to possibly be the head coach
And
at
Dan
Texas
Campbell
A&M.
politely, I mean,
Right,
yeah.
right. But this kind of came out of nowhere. But if he's a former assistant at the team and he's been a head coach, and I guess he led Duke to back-to-back bowl games the last couple of years, so he knows what he's doing. So I think that's going to be a good fit for Texas A&M, and hope everything works out there. Another story that I just saw a little while ago today. Uh, Deion Sanders says that Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Sapp is going to be joining his coaching staff at Colorado very
Wow.
soon. They didn't say exactly when, but that is his plan, is to bring him on board
Interesting
as
there,
an
because I
assistant
mean,
coach.
Warren Sapp, one of the best, greatest defensive players I've ever seen, and like, and as much as we might not have liked his off the field antics or even some of his on the field
Yeah.
antics, it's hard to argue with his talent on the field. And
Hall
you
of
hate
Famer.
it, and you hated playing against him. You're just like, ah, crap, we got to go up against Warren Sapp this
Yeah.
week. Like, so whatever knowledge he could pass down to these Colorado kids, who I know they've had a rough season. They started off great and kind of fizzled out here at the end. They've had some tough games, but this is a program to watch out for in the future, I think. I mean, Deion's just laying the foundation. I'm telling you, give them a year or two. This is going to be a national championship caliber
Yeah.
program.
Yeah,
If Deion
they've shown
sticks around.
they've shown that they can, they know how to put a team
I
together.
think Deion knows how to recruit, and I think
Give him another
the
year or
way
two.
he has
Yeah.
supported his players,
Yep.
and just his different attitude for how a program should be run in college football will be very attractive to a bunch of kids. And I think having it's saying, oh, and on the defense we got Warren Sapp as a coach. I get to learn from the great Warren Sapp.
Yeah.
Tell me that's not another. And
It's a recruiting thing, too.
it's a recruiting thing. So I'm telling you, I think I didn't like Deion as a player, but as a coach, I have loved pretty much everything Deion has done from Jackson State to now. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm behind Deion. Like, I think he's going to do something special.
Yep. Okay, our last story under college football comes to us from Japan.
Nope, you got one more.
Well, we already talked about that one.
Oh, the James Madison.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yep.
Okay, now it really is the last thing.
Okay, this was brought to my attention by our man in Japan, Greg James, who texted me the story, and he was mentioning the story, and I did not believe that what he was saying until he sent me the video, and I showed you the video,
Yeah.
so what he said was true. And now this was a story that he talked about on his podcast, which is Gridiron Japan. It was episode 40 that just came out the other day.
Go listen to it.
Go listen to it. It's only like a 45-minute podcast this week.
Yeah, so
And-
you would have finished this episode by now because we're at like 49 minutes. You would have finished this episode by now.
But he and the guy that he works with, I forget the other gentleman's name, but they went into great detail about the incidents that we're going to tell you about now. I don't have all the details. They go into much more detail on their podcast, but I listened to it. It was very good. But this is what happened. There was a college football game in Japan the other day, and the result of one team winning led to a three-way tie between three different schools for a playoff spot. And so this is how they decided who was going to the playoffs. They brought a player from the two teams that had just played. They're in their uniforms. One was wearing white, one was wearing blue, and then they had a third kid there who was representing the third team. Which I don't know if they played that day or another day.
Yeah, he was like dressed in a
street
polo
clothes,
shirt.
right?
Yeah.
So they're on the sidelines of the game after the game was won, and they can't even believe I'm saying this. They did rock paper scissors on the sidelines in front of a some sort of official. I don't know if he was a coach on one of the teams or who this official guy was, but this was their tiebreaker. The three kids did rock paper scissors to determine which one of the three was going to get the first pick of the three envelopes. And you would think that those three envelopes would be whichever one you pick, that's going to be the team. But that wasn't the case. The first envelopes that they picked was going to give the order of who was going to pick first in those three envelopes, and that was going to determine who the next
who got the playoff spots.
Who got the playoff spot. Right. So they had to pick envelopes twice. The first one was just to pick the order. The one kid got to go first, but I don't think he got the first pick in the next round or whatever. So it was so confusing.
It was absolutely. You watched like if I would have watched that video with no context, I would have been like, "What am I watching?"
Well, it was all in Japanese, so yeah, because I'd heard the podcast, it made sense after that. So they picked one envelope, and instead of just ripping over the envelope, they had to use scissors to open the envelope.
I think it was just to make it quicker.
Well, I don't know. Those must have been really tough envelopes, but they open it up and they show the the things, and it was 1, 2, and 3. So the guy that held number 1, he's the one that whatever one he picked, that was going to be the team that went to the playoffs. So they picked a second set of envelopes, and then they came out with this. And the winner of this was Kensai University, which was the team that lost in the game that they had just played. So now they're in the playoffs. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Greg said that the Kensai team is like a 5-time national championship team. So they're a very good team, but because they lost and they won the tiebreaker, now they're in the playoffs again. So they're probably the favorite to win it all this week.
After having to play rock, paper, scissors.
Right.
Absolutely crazy. I want to give a shout out to if you ever see this video, the real star of this, because the kids, even when they showed who had first, second, and third in the tiebreaker, none of those kids were smiling. I was like, I couldn't tell you which kid just got the playoff spot. But the guy or the staff who were drawing the envelopes and like making sure the kids had the envelopes and all that, you see people racing around, throwing envelopes on the table, giving them to the kids, giving them scissors. And you see one guy in particular, like as soon as all the envelopes were open for the first round, he's scooping up all the papers, getting them off the table. Then they get the next envelopes out. It was just so frantic. I'm just like, what in the world is happening? This is just absolutely bizarre. So you got to see this video to believe it. Was like 2 minutes.
Yeah, about a 2-minute video.
Man, yeah, I know. Did you retweet it?
I have not yet. He sent it to me on my phone, and I have not.
So either go to Gridiron Japan, look it up there, or Randy will retweet the video, I'm sure, or his podcast, so you can find it. It's just, you got to see it to believe it. Absolutely crazy.
So yeah, go listen to the podcast Gridiron Japan, available wherever you find.
Well, probably put a link to that in the description then too.
Yeah, and
just remind me, I'll put that in there later.
And it was episode number 40. It's the most current podcast out there.
Yeah, message me after the show.
Very good conversation that they had where they explained all that was going on. And even they could not believe that this was the tie-breaking process. Not, your record against common opponents. Not, how many wins you've had or average points per game.
Right, because this was clearly
like
more fun. If you saw the Raiders and the Chiefs and the Steelers representative walk out there and that's how they determine it, you tell me you wouldn't be like... This is absolutely riveting television.
Put them in the squared circle and be like a wrestling match.
There you go.
The last guy to get thrown out of the ring wins.
So many times have we talked about like coin flips determining stuff.
Right, yeah.
Give me this every day of the week.
Rock, paper, scissors, and 2 sets of envelopes.
Yes. Or if you watch South Park, Rochambeau, I'd even watch that.
I don't know how long this system has been in place.
2 days. They're like, let's just play rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, it's almost like the XFL, the original XFL coming up with this race for the ball the night before the first game.
One of the greatest things ever.
I wonder if they just made it up this year just because they said that there's a possibility of a 3-way tie. And how are we going to
Who
How are we
knows?
going
They
to
seem
fix
pretty organized
this?
with it. That was absolutely crazy.
I can't believe that that's what they use, but that's exactly what happened.
That's
So
what we're gonna do from now on. When we're like, how? Okay, we only got 3 spots on the podcast this week. How do we determine it?
rock, paper, scissors, go.
Yeah.
All right. In arena and indoor football news, the news is there is no news. Ever since that, um, well, not briefing, but their their schedule release
Yeah,
thing,
not
whatever
much. Even though I
conference.
do want to say I believe they have officially announced the Arizona Bandits did have
I
a
did
their
not. I've not seen that.
Instagram kind of came alive. Yeah, and they said they're coming out in 2025. We know the Rush is coming 2025. I think
Hmm.
they snuck in their thing at their press conference that Friday,
Right.
which I didn't.
Florida, what was it? Not Florida
The
Bobcats.
Cyclones never
Cyclones. There you go.
materialized.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff that never materialized. The
And
St.
St.
Louis,
Louis, yeah. So they've got all these teams that they had hinted this year, and they
right.
for whatever reason they didn't come to fruition. So yeah, they've got a bunch of teams lined up already for
So the next thing
2025.
to wait on is just maybe TV schedule, TV's
The dates of the games,
some
yeah,
of the
they
arena
right.
information for some of these teams. We
Who's
haven't
going to
gotten
be
anything,
playing where?
which we got a few months, I guess, but
Time's running out.
yeah, I'm sure we'll find out sooner rather than later
Yeah.
on all
It
that.
could be a busy month in the Arena Football League, getting a lot of these things set before the first of the year.
Yeah,
I would
so
think.
we'll see. I think now that they got all this out of the way, I think they can focus, hopefully, on just making this upcoming season as good as they can. Hopefully, walking back the nonsense that is their playoff plan, which I know a lot of
All
fans
neutral
are.
sites for.
Yeah, which I know a lot of fans are upset about, but
Yep.
we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Peyton's Places, episode 6 came out on Sunday for season 4. They talked a lot about Air Coryell, and Peyton interviewed Dan Fouts and quarterback Dan Fouts of the Chargers, as well as wide receivers Wes Chandler, Charlie Joyner, and Kellen Winslow. And because they were talking Air Coryell, they were at an air museum with a lot of vintage planes and more modern planes. And I just assumed that this airport that they were at, or museum, was out in California, because
Right.
San Diego is probably somewhere in Los Angeles. As it turned out, I was watching the credits at the end, and they credited the Maps Air Museum in North Canton, Ohio. And when I
Oh,
was in Canton last week, I did see a sign saying, this exit Maps Air Museum. So now I want to go there, because they did have an A-10.
oh.
As Peyton was walking into the hangar, you could see an A-10 in the background, parked outside. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, a lot of great highlights of Don Coryell, the head coach that was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame last year. A lot of great highlights of all these guys and conversations about how he was as a coach and whatnot.
So you're 6 episodes into the season. How's it compared to the other seasons so
Loving
far?
it. It's just as good. I mean, the quality is always good with these things. Always learn something. A lot of cool highlights, and of course Peyton. He gives you the same shtick every week, but I love it. So
Yeah.
I'm never disappointed with one of these episodes. So that's it. So check out Peyton's Places. Again, that was episode 6 for this year, and that's on ESPN Plus. We do have a birthday to talk about today, November 28th. Wide receiver Paul Warfield turns 81 today. He played his college football at Ohio State, and he was the 11th overall pick in the 1964 NFL Draft by the Cleveland Browns. He was also selected in the 4th round of the 1964 American Football League Draft by the Buffalo Bills. He signed with the Browns, where he played from 1964 to 1969. Then he went to play with the Miami Dolphins, where he's best known, between 1970 and 1974, and won back-to-back Super Bowls, Super Bowl 6 and 7 with the Dolphins, including that perfect season. And then he signed that huge contract along with um, Jim Kick and Larry Zonka from the Dolphins to play for the Memphis Southmen of the World Football League. Originally, they were the Toronto Northmen, but wound up Toronto. Canadian government didn't want them in in Toronto, so they moved the team to Memphis. But yeah, they played one season together, the three of them in 1975, and then he finished his career with the Cleveland Browns from 1976 to 1977. So happy birthday to Paul Warfield. And we do have a couple of obituaries today, 4 to be exact. This is where we take a moment to honor those who've made the world of football a better place. The first one is Harold Hasselbeck, A defensive lineman in the NFL and the Canadian Football League has passed away at the age of 56 from cancer. Hasselbeck played college football at Washington. He signed with the CFL's Calgary Stampeders and played for the team from 1990 to 1993, winning a Grey Cup title with the team in 1992. He also played for the Denver Broncos from 1994 to 2000, winning Super Bowls 32 and 33 with the Broncos.
All right, our next obituary is that of Mark Keller, a running back in the NFL and the World Football League, has passed away at the age of 71. Keller played college football at Northern Illinois and was selected in the 6th round of the 1966 NFL Draft by the Minnesota Vikings. However, he signed with the WFL's Chicago Fire and played for the team in 1974. In 1975, he played for the World Football League's Chicago Wind for 5 games before the team ceased operations. He then signed with the World Football League's San Antonio Wings, playing in 4 games until the entire league ceased operations for good. Keller then signed with the Minnesota Vikings in 1976 and played for the team through 1978.
Our next obituary is that of Ron Axe. That's spelled A-C-K-S. Ron Axe, a linebacker in the NFL for 9 seasons, has passed away at the age of 79. Axe played college football at Illinois and was selected in the 4th round of the 1966 NFL Draft by the Minnesota Vikings. He was also selected in the 16th round of the 1966 American Football League Draft by the New York Jets. However, he ended up signing with the Atlanta Falcons in 1968 and played for the team through 1971. He also played for the New England Patriots from 72 to 73 and the Green Bay Packers from 1974 to 1976.
And our final obituary this week is that of Jim Carter, a linebacker in the NFL for 8 seasons, has passed away at the age of 75. Carter played college football at Minnesota and was selected in the 3rd round of the 1970 NFL Draft by the Green Bay Packers. He played his entire career with the Packers from 1970 to 1978, but missed the 1976 season due to an injury.
And finally, on our podcast today, the upcoming events calendar. Saturday, December 9th, the 124th Army-Navy game, the last regular college season game of the season. On Sunday, December 17th, the Koshien Bowl, which is the college football national championship game in Japan. And a team that might be there is a team that got their spot by rock, paper, scissors. Let's see. Saturday, January 6th, the FCS championship game in Frisco, Texas. Monday, January 8th, the FBS college football championship game in Houston. Sunday, February 4th, the Pro Bowl game in Orlando. Pro Bowl games, in Orlando, or excuse for a Pro Bowl. And Sunday, February 11th, Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
Man, that's all going to be here before we know it.
I know it.
It's
yeah,
absolutely crazy.
I mean, before you know it, it's not even December yet, but before you know it, it's going to be New Year's,
Yeah.
and then it's going to be the end of January, and the Super Bowl is just going to be a couple weeks away.
Not even to mention Christmas in there somewhere.
Yep, and then the Arena Football League will be rolling in a month
April.
or 2 after that.
Yep. Oh,
Yeesh.
it never stops here at the World of Football.
No,
Except
it does not.
this podcast does have to come to an end at some point.
Anything else before we bring this to an end? Anything you've seen on your phone?
This just kind of came in that Arkansas is vetting the return of former coach Bobby Paterno as the school's offensive coordinator.
Paterno or Petrino?
Petrino, maybe Petrino. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just reading that real quick. Bobby Petrino. The Minnesota Vikings have cleared wide receiver Justin Jefferson.
I did see that
from his injury, so he'll play this week.
Yep.
And you didn't really mention it, I don't think, but the Pro Football Hall of Fame did announce the 25 modern era finalists for their class of 2024. I know usually you go through that whole list.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of them on the list, so I did post that on our Facebook and Twitter pages.
See, there
so
you go.
If people want to see the graphic, it lists all the names, so you can check those out there. I didn't want to mention
All
them here
good.
today. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the real finalists.
Yeah, the real finalists.
and
Yeah.
it's going to be a much shorter list, and we might go through those once we get them. So, all right. Well, that's it for this week's show. If you learned something during this podcast about the incredible amount of diversity that exists in the world of football, then we have done our job. Visit our website at theworldofffootball.com for news, links, upcoming events, original articles, videos, and more. Our email address is info@theworldofffootball.com.
You can follow the World of Football on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Just search for TWOF Kalamazoo. Pretty simple there. New episodes of this podcast are posted on Tuesdays and are available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. So you can just ask your Alexa device to play the World of Football podcast to hear us on whatever Alexa devices you may have. You can also find the full audio version of this show on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search for the World of Football Kalamazoo, or use the handle youtube.com/@theworldoffootball to find us. Please just spread the word, subscribe, rate, review, give us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and please come be a part of the football conversation because we did cross the 600 subscriber milestone this past week on our YouTube channel. We didn't even lead that at the top of the show.
No. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to us. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a year for us.
I think it was back in February we hit the 200 subscriber mark.
Yeah,
February
now we are at 600.
So by the end of the year, now we're at 600. So.
And we're just on the doorstep of YouTube walked back their minimum threshold for monetization.
Yes.
So we're like 60 watch hours away from potentially applying for that new threshold of monetization. We'll see how that goes. We're kind of playing it by ear. We're all new to this. We're just taking it one day at a time. So we appreciate everything and everybody. We didn't think we'd get this far.
No, not this fast.
And not this fast. I mean, I'm sure some channels have blown up quicker, but I think this is for us. This is like the right pace.
Yeah,
it's felt nice. Like we're not just going from 0 to 1,000 subscribers, where all of a sudden we're like, what do we do? We got all of a sudden we got a bunch of subscribers, but we're glad that you all tagged along. We appreciate the comments.
Yeah,
and you regulars that keep hitting us up. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you everyone for that. And remember, folks, some people may love football more than we do, but nobody, and I mean nobody, loves more football than the two of us sitting here in Kalamazoo, just having a good time, not knowing what the heck we're doing, we're talking about. Until next time, when we'll try and do a better job. Yeah, right. I'm Randy Snow.
And I'm Adam Snow.
And we'll see you all next week.